India today is right at the front lines of this war against Hamas terror, Israel's war on Hamas terror. We are at the fence. The plumes of smoke that you see rising.
Israel and Hamas. Everybody is talking about that right now. And we have someone who has covered 15 days in that area. Let's go meet him. Hi, sir. It's so good to see you back.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Sir, you have been in Israel for the past 15 days. And I'm here. I have a lot of questions. Our viewers have a lot of questions. And so we need 15 minutes of yours today.
All the time in the world for you.
Sir, now that you're back in India, I want to start with that. How does it feel, the juxtaposition with what you've seen? Have you settled in a sense?
So, in my mind, I actually still think of the air raid sirens, the
Yes.
rocket warning sirens. I still think of what was happening in the past, because this was a very intense experience. I've covered conflict before, but this was extremely intense. The manner in which this terror attack took place. We've been hit before. 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. I've covered that on ground, and this is Mumbai terror attacks multiplied manifold.
So, when you landed there, what was the first impression that you had? And what was the thought behind when you were on that flight?
It was very scary. I've been to Israel before. I've reported from Israel before. And 7th of October, when this terror attack took place and we were watching those images, they were surreal, unbelievable.
Correct.
You couldn't imagine something like this could happen to Israel, a country which is so clear about its security, a country that invests so much in its security, and something like this had happened. This is any country's worst nightmare, and Israel was living that nightmare. Can you imagine, terrorists, and not one, not two, not even 100, when 1,000 terrorists enter a country armed to the teeth at multiple locations, and then they spread out across several cities and towns and communities, armed to the teeth, firing indiscriminately, having body cams and the GoPro cameras on their heads, filming everything, torturing people, killing people. All of this, we'd seen some of those images, we'd heard of some of those images. The flight to Tel Aviv, I had some soldiers, some reservists who were returning home to fight.
Okay.
And I interacted with them on the flight. The stories that they were narrating,
What did they say? Like, why were they coming back to a place which has seen such a devastating attack? Why were they coming back?
so for Israel,
Huh.
this was an existential war. It's a
Correct.
country that's surrounded by hostile countries. It's improved ties with several
Correct.
neighbors, but it still is not on best of terms with some others. It's been fighting. It's been fighting pretty frequently, with terrorists and terrorists backed by state actors. Like we suffer 20, Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. So you have Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, and if you go back to the 90s, a dozen other assorted terrorist organizations, all funded by Pakistan. Israel similarly is battling terrorists like Hamas or Hezbollah, or this time even the Houthi rebels, backed by Iran. They were firing rockets and missiles into that country all the way from Yemen. I was hearing all those stories about how Hamas had attacked. Soldiers or reservists were telling me, like, I met a journalist on board this flight. He was on vacation, incidentally having a holiday in India, and he was returning to his country to fight. So I said, to be a reporter. He says, no, I'm going to don a uniform and I'm going on the front lines. And he did. And I kept in touch with him throughout these 15 days that I was there. I know that Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, it's directly in the line of, Hamas rocket fire. So when we landed there, we somehow managed to get to a hotel. I didn't know what hotel I was going to stay in.
You didn't know that.
No.
So talk me through how you planned, like when the attack happened on Saturday, October 7th. So what happened? Like you went there. And
So 7th, the attack took place.
Yeah.
8th morning, 7th night, I called up the Israeli embassy here. Again, that's an embassy. Since you cover foreign affairs and defense,
Correct.
you're in touch with people there. And I said, I need an emergency visa. I need a visa right now. And they were kind enough to give me a visa. And I traveled alone. On this particular trip, I didn't have a camera person. In Ukraine, I had a camera person. This time I didn't. So I had all my equipment with me, a bulletproof jacket, a helmet.
So you took all of that from
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your
Wow.
checked-in baggage.
Okay.
And I landed there, and at the airport itself, I wanted to, usually then you decide whether you rent a car or you
Hmm.
take a taxi. So there was another crew there. That crew was staying in the heart of Tel Aviv.
Okay.
So I have friends in Israel. I'd spoken to them on phone, and they said the moment you arrive, it's safer to stay in the heart of the city, or someplace where you can get to a bomb shelter. The
Hmm.
only thing you need to do when you book a hotel is see if it has a bomb shelter.
And that's a norm there.
That's a norm there,
Like
because
all hotels or like all places will have it.
almost every good hotel has a bomb shelter. Every house has a bomb shelter. There are bomb shelters next to bus stops. There are bomb
Oh.
shelters on roads, because anytime you hear the siren, just abandon your car and get into a bomb shelter.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of journalists like running to. So what happened? So what is the siren
it,
for?
it's very intense. So the moment Hamas terrorists fire a rocket
Yeah.
into Israel,
Yeah.
the moment that rocket is fired, it's caught on the radars of Israel, and then depending on where you are. So, for example, when I was reporting from Sderot or Eshkelon, which are very close to the fence, the Gaza fence. So you have 30 seconds, just 30 seconds from the time you hear a siren to the time that you dive into a bomb shelter.
Oh.
That's it, 30 seconds. Otherwise, that rocket could hit you if it's aimed in your general area. And rocket is not a precision weapon.
Correct.
Even if it's not aimed at you, even if the Iron Dome missile
Yeah.
defense system, it goes and hits the rocket and destroys it in air.
Yeah.
There are shrapnel that fall, and
Correct.
shrapnel are red, hot, burning pieces of iron. Okay, jagged iron, and it falls from a couple of 100 feet. And if it falls down,
That's
it
deadly.
hits your head. Your head splits like a watermelon. Hits your shoulder can get cut off. It hits your chest, you'll die. Hits your leg, your leg could get amputated. So any part of a rocket hitting any part of your body, it's very dangerous. So the aim is just dive into something that will protect your head and your body.
So did that experience sort of happen to you? When how did you have to like rush?
Just about 100 times, if not more, in these 15 days.
Oh.
The rocket attacks happen with that frequency, alarming frequency. Day one, when I was reporting from Eshkelon, and incidentally, no taxi driver the next morning was willing to go to Eshkelon. And they said, "Are you mad? They're firing rockets there. There are terrorists who are still there." On the ninth morning.
Yeah.
Seventh terror attack took place. Eighth, we reached there. Ninth, Hamas terrorists were still inside Israel.
Was still inside. So did you see that sort of?
I saw that exchange of fire in Sderot, yes.
Oh.
And we saw terrorist dead bodies, Hamas terrorist dead bodies, even on the 10th and the 11th of
So it was,
October.
this fighting was still happening till 11, good, 4-5 days after the first attack.
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay.
In fact, one set of terrorists were neutralized just 2 days ago. But this was, of course, a fresh infiltration in this Zikim Beach area. But the Israeli army and police very systematically, they cordoned off areas. No civilian beyond this point.
So you were talking about the taxi driver. So
So
what
no
happened?
taxi driver was willing to go.
So then
No taxi
how did you
driver.
go?
We took a train.
Oh,
Trains were still running to Eshkelon.
Okay.
So on the 9th, morning, we took a train from Tel Aviv Central to Eshkelon in the south. Now Eshkelon is beautiful. Okay, it's the Mediterranean sea coast, blue ocean, super rich people live there, yachts there. Beautiful marina, beautiful bay. You've a lot of boats there parked there, but not a soul in sight. Not one soul in sight. Entire town evacuated.
So that was the Israeli town, and
That was the Israeli town in southern
Yeah.
Israel,
and now it was completely barren.
and it was bad. No, not a soul there.
You actually spoke to a lot of people on the ground. You, from IDF soldiers to victims, you've spoken to practically everybody that you could in Israel. What was that experience like? What is the ground reality in Israel at the moment with the soldiers and also with the generic public? What are they feeling?
So one thing which I found remarkable in Israel was their love for India. I mean, they love India. Everybody, virtually everybody, when they take a vacation,
Yeah.
they come to our country. They go to Kulu Manali, they go to Ladakh, they go to Karnataka, they go to Tamil Nadu, they go to Goa in a big way, and spend a lot of time there. They go to Andaman and Nicobar now, because and they know so much about our country. They know so much about our country. They know so much about our culture.
Yeah, and it's a recent thing, or has it been culturally?
Always. So look, officially, India and Israel had diplomatic ties only after 1992.
Correct.
Right? And from what IDF officers also tell me, it it so 1992 relationship was established. 1999 we had the Kargil war, where Israel helped us with some of the military hardware that we required, some precision guided munition for our bombs to target the Pakistanis on the Kargil heights. So that relationship started developing then. Post 2014, this relationship has taken a new trajectory. Post 2014, perhaps Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, they kind of bonded very well together. So it's not just defense or strategy or intelligence, but also science and technology, irrigation, desalination. So that cooperation is not just government to government or defense and strategic and all, but also people to people is now coming up in a big way, and they feel very safe in our country. We are the only country in the world, they say, where they feel the safest.
Really?
Yeah.
But sir, after the attack, when you landed there like on October 8th and you spoke to people on October 9th, what was the general public feeling? Was there a sense of fear amongst the public?
Oh, tremendous, tremendous. Look, this is a country that has Holocaust. The fact that millions were killed by Hitler's army, and tortured and killed. So it's so embedded in them. The moment they became a country, they've been attacked from all sides. They've come out on top. But that hasn't happened just once. Even 1973, the Yom Kippur War that everyone talks about, again, festival, everyone enjoying, and then there's a mass combined attack on the country from all sides, and yet they emerge on top. So it's exactly the same thing that's happened with them. So they're always on edge, they're always prepared, and like they were caught off guard then, they've been caught off guard now. Now, at least now they claim they'll never be caught off guard again. But yes, they were scared. They were very angry. They're still apprehensive because there are over 220 of their citizens who are being held hostage by Hamas. So let's just take it in India. We're a huge country, right?
Correct.
In a huge country like ours, when 10 Pakistani terrorists came, they killed 166 people, spread out only in one city to 5-6 different locations, and killed 166 over 3 days. And we're a big country. But that's shaken our conscience. That's shaken us to our core. Right? Israel is much smaller, but in a much smaller country, they've been hit in a much bigger way. 1,000 terrorists came in, killed 1,400. More bodies are being found every other day. So 1,400 plus killed, 200 plus taken hostage, 2,000 plus injured. If in India, their former Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, again, a special forces guy, very strong person, he says, imagine in India, if 2 lakh people had been killed by terrorists, 2 lakh in Mumbai, in Delhi, in 3-4 different places, what would India's reaction have been? When you look at those videos, these terrorists, Hamas terrorists, they trained automatic weapons, flying hand gliders. Imagine 3,000 of your friends, college, you're very young college people, right? You're fresh out of college. So all of you are enjoying a party somewhere. It's like a college fest, good music happening, dance party happening, you're partying overnight, there's a camping site, great food, great everything. And suddenly, people come in hand gliders, even before they land, they're firing indiscriminately into the crowd. Indiscriminately, they're firing into the crowd. People come in pickup trucks and vans, they get out of the pickup trucks and van and just indiscriminately fire. So people run away. It takes you time to, you may be having a drink or two, you may have had an evening of great fun. So you run in one direction, and in that one direction, firing starts again. So you run back, and it's an open area for perhaps 20-30 kilometers because it's out in the open. Okay, plus there's some undergrowth, some forested area a little distance away, but all of this is happening openly in an open area. No built up structures anywhere. Let's say there are 50, there's no shelter. There are 50 toilets, those box toilets, plastic box toilets that have been set up. So people run into those toilets to hide. And then people from outside open fire indiscriminately at those boxes, at those toilets. So there's no way. So 3,000 people were there, 300 people were massacred there. Some of them, whoever had weapons, fired back. Not only were 300 people killed, this was the place where, women were caught like this and dragged by their hair and taken back into Gaza Strip. I went to that place. One of the first responders, I interviewed that police officer and one of the army officers who was there. They told me what happened, how it happened. They showed us footage which has now been released to the world, was shown to us because it was there on their mobile phone cameras. And I sent some of that footage to our channel also that time, before it became public. So this was the horror at the Nova Music Festival site. So I reported from there. I showed all those camping sites where the tents were. The tents had bullet holes in them. Those toilets that had bullet holes in them. Food carts, many food carts there. Food carts that had bullet holes in them. You know, so I've covered defense and I've covered counter-terrorism for a very long time. The stench of burnt, rotting bodies, it was all over that place. There were like thousands of flies, blood all over, rotting flesh. I mean, it actually horrifies you. What I saw here. Then I went to those kibbutz that had been targeted. Nihalo's the first, right, so you see the Gaza fence, you see a little no man's land, and then you have this settlement.
Okay.
In this settlement, when terrorists came in, they fired. Now, imagine the security, there are gates, it's protected. They kill the security guards, they crash through the gates, they come in. Once you're in, everyone's enjoying a festival. We'd enjoy like Holi, Diwali, Kumbh. People congregate there with family and they're enjoying. That's where these attacks took place. So terrorists entered homes, fired indiscriminately, tortured children in front of parents. I mean, the most horrifying for any parent is to see that your little children, their fingers are being chopped off, or they are being hit on the head, or for a child or a little child to see the mother being raped or killed in front of her, of the children, or the father being shot dead. I also went to the place where the postmortems were being conducted. So the doctor who conducted the postmortem was crying when he was talking to me. He said in one instance, and later they made this public, in one instance, they found a clump of flesh and they couldn't make out what exactly was this. So they did all sorts of x-rays and CT scans and tests. And they found it was two spines, one long spine, elderly person, a grown-up person, and one small spine, so maybe a child. Their impression was, from what this doctor told me, a mother or a father hugging the child when they were being burnt alive. So I can't imagine that kind of trauma that both the parent and the child must have undergone. One of the survivors we spoke to, she said, I kept thinking, where is the IDF? Where are the police? Why aren't we being rescued? And this is something that the Benjamin Netanyahu government, the IDF, the police, so I asked the police this. He said, we rushed as quickly as we could. We saved as many as we could. We killed as many Hamas as we could. And it's just that, and they were all shot at, they were also shot through. A lot of security forces personnel also made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in this. So there would be a postmortem, how they goofed up in such a major way.
We're talking about Israel, but you were one of the first people from India who actually went to West Bank. Why did you take that decision? Because obviously Israel is still,
So I wanted to give all sides of the story, and that on a Friday afternoon. And my driver, incidentally, was an Israeli, a Jew, and he said, I'm not going to West Bank. They'll kill me if I go into West Bank. And by the way, so when I was crossing over to get into Ramallah, there was a signboard that said, no Israelis beyond this point. If you're Jewish, don't cross this point. And I crossed over. I'm an Indian. The Israelis control security, and I had, the Israel. Let me see. I'll show you. There's a pass that the Israelis give you. This is a pass that you require. Okay. So this is a pass which says your press. It gives out your name, your country, your passport number.
Okay, so you have to show this at
multiple locations. This is checked. You have this, which means you've been vetted, by the government. You've been you're clear to go. It's issued by the a government press office. It's like RPIB in a way. Our press information bureau card. So I showed this pass and I went into the West Bank. And it's completely different. I mean, Israel is like first world. I was driving a Tesla in Israel, though I'd hired a Volkswagen. But that day, just the driver, there's some engine trouble because driving 300-400 kilometers every day.
Yeah.
So he said, I have to send that car for servicing. I'll give you my personal car. And he gave me his Tesla. And so that car couldn't get into the West Bank. No Israeli number plates,
Oh, okay.
he said. So we crossed over, hired a taxi. There was a local journalist, who I didn't know that journalist from earlier. It's just somebody gave me a contact. So with that contact, I went to his office. And in hindsight, I'm sure you've seen the Fauda series, right? Fauda is all about the Israeli security forces battling terrorists, in Gaza or in West Bank.
Yeah.
So it just reminds you of those series, those same lanes, by lanes, this and that. So I got a local taxi. The currency is the same, the shekels. So that taxi driver, I said, just take me to the mosque where the protests are planned. We went to the mosque and there was such a huge crowd there. And the driver himself said, where are you from? I said, India. He said, okay, you're okay.
Okay.
But foreign press not too kindly right now. So, or that's the impression I got, because we were talking through, Google Translate. So, so he said, okay, but I stepped out. But since I was alone, I said, not a very bright idea, because language is a barrier. I have equipment and I have no exit route. I wouldn't know how to get out of here and I wouldn't know where to go. We'd driven for about 20-25 minutes and I knew no one in West Bank. So I said, okay, then take me to the place where all foreign journalists are, which is their protest area. And in that protest area, the Israeli settlement is not very far from there. And then protesters came in large numbers, men, women, children, wearing them, some people wearing that mask with their slingshots, targeting the Israeli side, burning tires. I spoke to a number of them, emergency workers, health workers. And since they were so used to it, there were like 20 ambulances that had come, doctors had come.
They were all ready.
They were all ready that the moment protests happened in the Israeli side, either fires tear gas or pepper spray, or rubber bullets, whatever happens, they will instantly take the injured to hospital. So I stayed there a couple of hours, spoke to them, got their anger, their angst.
So what is that? If you could,
So
you have an anecdote or like.
So some of these young college students I spoke to, they said what Hamas did is wrong, but what Israel is doing, targeting civilians, is also not right. Okay, so stop targeting civilians. Let there be a ceasefire. And go after Hamas, launch surgical strikes, but don't kill little children, don't kill women, don't kill the elderly. My aim was that on India Today, we have to give all sides of the story. If we could get to Gaza, I'd go to Gaza.
You said about Gaza, we can't go to Gaza. Why is that?
So Israel controls the access to Gaza and Israel has stopped it. They're not even letting food, water and fuel get into Gaza from the Israeli side. Their point is, the 220 plus civilians, you release them safely if you want food, water and medicines. Israel says the onus is on Hamas. Hamas is an elected body by the people of Gaza. Whatever way, sham election, stolen election, opposition killed an election, stolen, that's for Gaza to sort out. But Gaza has Hamas ruling them. So responsibility for safety of civilians in Gaza is of Hamas. Let Hamas release all the Israeli prisoners, hostages, and you resume food, water supply. But don't expect Israel to feed the enemy when you're keeping hostages. Israel has a point on that account. They're still permitting from the Rafah side, from the Egyptian side, resources to come in, but they're monitoring those resources to a trickle. That the basic minimum a body needs to survive, that much will go. No fuel will go. Fuel can fuel the rockets that are fired at Israel. So they say, why should we give fuel to the enemy? Gaza says you give us fuel for hospitals, for electricity. Their point is, millions of dollars that have been given by the world to Gaza Strip should have been used to, build facilities, desalination plants, electricity plants, everything, solar plants. But all that money was used to make underground tunnels to fuel a war against Israel. So why should Israel fuel and give fuel for a war against the people of Israel? They look at it as an existential war. One of the two will survive, either Hamas or Israel. So Israel says it's better that we survive and Hamas is decimated.
For more informative videos like this, keep watching India Today News Mo.